You are watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is News That Makes You Healthier. Today we have Trudy Scott, clinical nutritionist. We are interviewing about food-based solutions to anxiety, and I love talking about food as medicine.
Yes.
So this is going to be a great show that hopefully helps a ton of people who are suffering with anxiety.
Okay, good. Trudy, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here to share this information.
So we're talking about anxiety today. For people that don't know your book, tell us about your book. Who should read this book?
Anyone who feels anxious, possibly has panic attacks, someone who's feeling stressed and overwhelmed, the smallest thing might set them off and they might feel fear, they might feel feelings of doom. It also helps people who have sugar cravings, because often when we have emotional problems, we'll stress eat. So if you balance your brain chemicals, you're not going to stress eat, and then you're going to feel less anxious. If you've got fears, phobias, anyone who wants to feel 100% all the time, and we deserve to feel 100%, don't we?
I agree. Sounds like maybe everybody should read your book, because I think that we all struggle with stress and overwhelm and anxiety at certain points in our life. That's just our fast-paced world we live in. So what do we do about it? What should we avoid? Let's first start there, and then we'll build an action plan.
I would say the most common problematic food that I see with my clients is gluten. Now, gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, rye, barley. Oats can be contaminated with gluten. And I find about 80 to 90% of my clients who have any kind of mood problem, be it anxiety or depression or social anxiety, do better off gluten. And there is tons of research supporting the connection between gluten and mental health. So what I have my clients do is remove the gluten, see how they feel. After 2 weeks, we do a challenge and we add it back. And then they see if they notice anything. And they may feel more anxious. They may have a panic attack. They may just feel tired and achy and fatigued when they add it back. But that's a clue that gluten may be an issue. And that's one of the biggest ones that I see.
Have you ever had anyone that had panic attacks or were anxious all of the time that you took off gluten and their anxiety went away?
I did, actually. I worked with a woman who actually came into me because she was anxious and depressed. She was on medication. She'd been working with her doctor. And she also happened to have eczema all down the side of her face and her neck and her arms. But she came to see me primarily because she was anxious. And I said to her, we need you to go gluten-free, just like I do with everyone that I work with. But I did say to her, there is this connection between skin health, eczema, psoriasis, and gluten. So maybe it'll help your skin problem as well. And she went gluten-free. And it was amazing. The results were dramatic. The first week she came in to see me, and I have all my clients do a food mood log. She came in to see me, and she hadn't really noticed any difference. And her skin was still bad. And I looked at her food log, and we discovered that she'd been eating a whey protein that actually had some wheat in it. So the second week, she was completely gluten-free. And she came in, and she was feeling calmer. Her skin was starting to heal, and she'd been dealing with the skin problem for 10 years. So her skin was starting to heal, she was feeling calmer. And what I do when I work with my clients to help them get off the gluten, because it's often very addicting and it's very difficult to break that addiction, is I'll have them use some of the amino acids to break that addiction and the craving. But the cool thing was that once she got off the gluten, she didn't need these amino acids. And I had her on Gaba, which is a calming amino acid, and I had her on tryptophan. And once she got off the gluten and it had been out of her system for a while, she was no longer requiring these amino acids. So it was amazing. And she worked with her doctor and got off her medications and hasn't looked back.
So those are such truly inspiring stories, and I couldn't agree with you more that gluten basically is no good for anyone, and there's the whole digestive connection with our mood and with our skin. So if you're going to use GABA and tryptophan to help somebody break craving and addiction, can you give us dosages, and can you talk a little bit more about those two amino acids in particular?
Certainly. So let's talk about tryptophan first, because that's required when you have low serotonin. And we often think of serotonin as being associated with depression. But when we have low serotonin, as well as depression and sadness, we may also have anxiety in the head. So it's sort of ruminating thoughts, worry, reprocessing things, sort of, just excessive worry in the head. more than the physical body. And let me just go through some of the symptoms. So it's depression, anxiety in the head, afternoon and evening cravings. That's the big clue. So if you have the afternoon and evening cravings, you may have sleep problems, you may have insomnia, you may have PMS and winter blues. If you have those symptoms, that's a clue that serotonin may be an issue.
So when do you want them to take the tryptophan?
The tryptophan you take afternoon and evening. So the starting dose for tryptophan is 500 milligrams. So you may take one mid-afternoon and one in the evening, and that's going to help raise your serotonin, which takes a bit of a dip in the afternoon and the evening. And then you're going to break those cravings. You're going to start to feel calmer. You're going to feel happier. A lot of my clients, when I have them try this, they say they feel more optimistic. They feel hopeful right away, which is really fantastic, because when they're feeling really anxious, they need that hope right away.
So Trudy, you talk about tryptophan, but there's also the non-converted form of 5-HTP. So what do you see as the differences? Because I have found in my practice some clients can handle 5-HTP and some need the straight tryptophan. Otherwise, they can get anxiety. So how do you find what actually works for you?
So that is such a great question, because we are all unique. We've all got our own biochemistry. So we need to take what we need. I tend to start my clients on tryptophan. I find most people do well on it, but you are absolutely right. About 10% do better on one versus the other, and it's a matter of trying it out and seeing what works for you. I can tell you something about 5-HTP, and that is that it can raise cortisol levels. So if someone is anxious, they've got high cortisol, yes, and it can raise their cortisol levels, and there's research supporting this. So I like to look at saliva cortisol levels to see what someone's adrenals are looking like. But if I haven't done that, I don't have those results, then I would start with tryptophan first. And if they don't do well with that, then I would switch to 5-HTP. But something else that I wanted to address, Christa, is that too much of these amino acids can have a reverse effect. So if someone is taking tryptophan, the starting dose is 500 milligrams. Say they take 500 milligrams and they feel more anxious. It may be too much for them, and they may need to start lower. So I like to say to my clients, are you very sensitive to supplements? Do you need a very small amount? And if they do, I may even have them try a quarter or a half of a capsule to start off with.
With GABA, and we only have a couple of minutes left, but with GABA, what are your thoughts for long-term use of GABA?
Most of the amino acids you shouldn't need long-term. They're short-term while you're doing the eating, the healthy eating. Because you've got to get animal protein into your diet. You've got to eat to control your blood sugar. You've got to get good produce into your diet, so you're getting all those nutrients. So the amino acids, all of them should be short-term. But if you are not dealing with those problems, you may need to be on GABA longer. And I didn't actually address the question about GABA. The starting dose for GABA is much lower, and the symptoms are physical tension. So if you're feeling stiff and tense in your muscles versus in your head, which is the low serotonin. And I don't think that you should need to be on it long-term, to answer your question. No. Have you got an example where someone might need to be?
I've heard some nutritionists that are worried about long-term use of GABA. I just was curious what your thoughts were. I take GABA at night. I can't think of the dose. It's in a powder form. I like it. It helps me sleep a lot better.
Right.
I've had great luck with it.
Right.
I'm on about my third month, so maybe I need to stop.
Titrate off. Well, what about
this?
Yeah,
you can stop and see if you don't need it anymore.
So for you to titrate off, let's talk about, in our last couple minutes, let's talk about the foods that our viewers can add in to combat anxiety, maybe can help them get off the amino acids. So you say we need foods that are high in vitamin B6 to help us sleep and feel calm, and zinc, and then I also would like to talk about foods high in L-theanine, which I've found is really helpful for calming anxiety.
And then, of course, your thoughts on caffeine, and then we're going to have to wrap up this segment.
Okay.
It's a lot of stuff.
Okay, let's do the caffeine one first, because that's the easy one. The caffeine is a problem for a lot of people with anxiety. And if you are anxious, any kind of anxiety or feeling stressed, I would say give up the caffeine. It's going to make a difference for most people. A subset of people are just more prone to the effects of caffeine. If you are going to have caffeine, you want to do it, coffee's your thing. You do want to make sure it's organic and not in a plastic cup. But I think, get off the caffeine and see if you notice a difference. And it's a tough thing for most people. You've got to look at, why are you tired in the first place? Because we self-medicate with these foods. So I hope it's not really an easy one for my clients, but that's an easy one to address. But certainly zinc and B6 are really important nutrients for a number of reasons. They are used to make the serotonin. They're used to make the GABA. They're used to make all our neurotransmitters. They're some of the cofactors that are required. And a really great source of zinc is red meat. And a lot of people are saying, I'm trying to be healthy and I'm going with eating red meat and I'm, trying to be, it's a better thing to do. But there is research now supporting that grass-fed red meat is actually beneficial for mental health. And I'm a proponent of quality food. So getting in that grass-fed red meat is going to give you zinc. It's going to give you iron, which is also needed to make the neurotransmitters. It's also a wonderful source of omega-3s. And we haven't talked about omega-3s, but they are wonderful for mental health and for improving your mood as well. So as well as the red meat, other sources of zinc are nuts and seeds, sources of B6, obviously animal protein, fish.
So what is the dose of the B6, and can you take it at bedtime?
I think B6 is fabulous because it helps to make serotonin. And the starting dose that I use with B6 is 100 milligrams. And some people actually find it a little stimulating at bedtime. Other people find that it helps them sleep. So it really is on an individual basis.
What about magnesium? I know we're out of time, but...
Magnesium's fabulous. It's a calming mineral. And magnesium is another cofactor for making the brain chemicals. So all of these things all play a role together in helping you to feel calm and sleep well.
Like it. Thank you, Trudy. So we're going to look into tryptophan, and we're going to look into GABA, vitamin B6, pasture-raised, grass-fed beef, past egg yolks. I know that those are great. And we're going to try to get off the sugar, gluten, and caffeine. And so if our viewers want to know more, they can read your book.
Yeah, where do we get your book?
Mm-hmm.
You can get the book in bookstores. It's on Amazon. You can get a signed copy on my website. And it's a great resource for people who want to feel calm and happy.
And then what is your website, Trudy? I understand you have some freebies you're willing to pass along to our viewers.
Yes, you could go to antianxietyfoodsolution.com and you'll get a report on 5 simple steps to start reducing anxiety.
We love it. Thank you for the good work you're doing. Food is medicine.
Thanks, Trudy. It's a pleasure to meet you. You've been watching the Randy and Christa show, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. We have Christa Recchio. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Randy and Christa show, news that makes you healthier. That was really interesting, Randy, right? Talking about how you can heal yourself of anxiety, and that's the idea, is to use food as medicine so you have so much more power over how you feel in life.
So you were anxious at one time.
Yeah, so Trudy, when I met her, we really talked a lot about this because I didn't have all these different weight and health problems, but it was more emotional where I didn't have much energy and I toggled back and forth between anxiety and depression.
Like what kind of anxiety? For people that don't have anxiety. I don't have anxiety. Is
it's
it during
like
the
an
day?
impending sense of doom where you can't be present and you just have that agitation.
Yeah.
And it's because I was doing it to myself. So when Trudy says get off of gluten, sugar, and caffeine, I went cold turkey, and once I realized what they did to me, and I spent 1 year in alcohol. Can you imagine? I was no fun. But for 1 year, I didn't do any of those things, and I added in these amino acids, and I added in food, and people would say, you're so centered, you're so calm, you emanate peace. And to me, it shocked me, and that's why I committed my life to this. So I just think this is really powerful, and I want to talk about some other
things. In your clinical
things.
practice, by the way, you've changed their diets, given them some of the supplements that we talked about, like magnesium, tryptophan, GABA, etc. So you've seen a lot of people like you that were anxious.
And no longer are.
Is that right?
And
Good.
food changes up, and they're also on. You should not stay on anti-anxiety meds for very long, and there's some people that are so afraid to get off of them. And so you can get off of anti-anxiety meds within 3 weeks' time if you balance your brain chemistry. I would recommend working with a practitioner, test your neurotransmitters, see the levels of these neurotransmitters we're talking about so you know the dose and the type of amino acid to use.
Okay.
But in general, start with the food. Eliminate gluten, caffeine, sugar, or do the best you can. And if that sounds overwhelming. I mean, Trudy's book goes into more depth. TheWholeJourney.com, I have endless ways, okay, how do I get off of gluten? It's not so easy, right? I tried to get you off of coffee. You can't just cut it out cold turkey, so I give alternatives of what can you do instead so it doesn't feel like a sacrifice.
But 2 cups. I do a couple of cups.
I know.
And I'm doing them
maybe
early
1
in the
cup.
morning, 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Do you get a crash later in the day?
No.
Okay.
No, I
You're
should
an
say,
anomaly.
because we were talking about the anti-anxiety, but for food cravings, and I've worked with a lot of people nutritionally, worked inside of integrative medicine, functional medicine centers, and I've never met one person that tryptophan, magnesium, or 5-HTP, or some of these things help their cravings. The only thing that has helped have been their food. I fight food cravings all the time.
I know you do.
And if I eat right, I'm fine. But if I have a cookie or bread or whatever, pizza, I'm completely out of balance for a few days, and my mind will play tricks on me.
Well,
I wish it was as easy
We're
as
going to
taking...
ask our next guest about that. He's all about food cravings because there's a psychological component too in your approach to food, which I'm always
Interesting.
trying to get to with you.
Okay.
But there's 2 things that Trudy didn't really mention that I want to tell you about and you guys about that have been really successful for me in that when you have anxiety as a result of, let's say, brain inflammation from all these foods that we're having that raises glutamate, the amino acid L-theanine, which is very safe. You can get it at any health food store. It would start off with 100 to 300 milligrams of that taken throughout the day to take the edge off.
Have there been any, and this is for anxiety.
For anxiety, so you're asking about studies.
And my question is, so in the, the psychiatrists, they have their, all of a sudden I can't think of their paper, but have there been any studies on L-theanine that have helped anxiety patients?
Sure.
Really?
Of course.
Okay.
On theanine and ashwagandha, that's an herb that comes from India. There's been a handful of studies. This is still very new as we're trying to bridge our camp between allopathic medicine and natural medicine. And they're saying, studies show when you combine these 2 herbs, obviously you want to know the root of your anxiety. When you combine L-theanine and the herb ashwagandha, you can basically get yourself off of anti-anxiety meds within a matter of 3 weeks.
You've had people get off
It's
them?
worth doing
Good.
research. And high doses of omega-3 fatty acids and fish oil, which we didn't get to talk about, enough vitamin D3. I think I'm going to write a blog and pull all of this together for our viewers and with an action plan so it's not confusing or overwhelming.
So during the day, so take us on a typical, somebody watching this, they have anxiety, like you say you had. So when do they take it? After a meal, before a meal? And the basics would be a little L-theanine, a little magnesium.
Yeah, I would say to take 100.
Tryptophan,
see now you
Gaba.
keep talking about magnesium. I would say to use magnesium oil on your feet 3 times a week. You spray it on your feet, it absorbs through the skin because, Randy, too much magnesium drives up DHEA and can imbalance your hormones. And so it's an amazing mineral, but too much, there is such thing as too much of a good thing. So I would say magnesium 3 times a week.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to take it in pill form, because you're laughing, you'll never put it on your feet. 400 milligrams magnesium
I might if somebody put it on my feet
glycinate.
for me. As long as
Maybe you can ask Carolyn.
I mean, I've
Maybe
heard.
she can do that for
I've
you.
heard a lot of things. I have not heard the magnesium on the feet
Okay.
one.
Well, that's what
Seems
I'm
like
here
you'd have
for,
told
to
me by
teach you
now.
new
I've known you
things.
long enough. Why today you finally bring it up?
Oh, I have
I'm
so much
interested.
in my arsenal. How can I tell you everything?
Okay.
I have to
I'm gonna have to read
space
all
it
of your
out.
blogs. I read your stuff. Okay, so put it on your
Have
feet.
breakfast, protein and fat. If you're a coffee drinker, have coffee with breakfast. You're doing that now.
Yeah.
Never have it alone if you have anxiety, and don't have more than 8 to 12 ounces. Have protein and fat. Let's say eggs and black beans. The eggs are cooked in butter or coconut oil for breakfast. If you're anxious, the coffee's going to make it worse, but you can take your L-theanine then. But I would say let's start to do this later in the day.
Okay.
So taking 100 milligrams of B6 with lunch and dinner, 100 milligrams of L-theanine with lunch and dinner. Trudy suggests 500 milligrams of tryptophan. I always start off slow with 100. So I would say 100 milligrams with dinner and before bed.
And for some people, I should say, I've met some people that for tryptophan, it was a miracle. My brother, that he was an insomniac.
Right.
For him, he's right to sleep.
Yeah,
With
and
me, it
that's-
doesn't work by itself.
But that's the thing is we're all so unique.
Yeah.
You need to run your brain chemistry panel, which I'm happy to do for you.
I'm going to do that.
And everybody, one person's medicine is another person's poison. Let's just find the balance. Take away what the body doesn't need, give the body what it needs. It will heal itself.
So when you do this for a long period of time, can you also I mean, is this something you're doing forever? These supplements?
No, you don't have to do
Like
anything
theanine?
forever. It's just to get yourself to a state of balance, and as long as you remain responsible and accountable with lifestyle, then you can let it go. But then as life happens and stress happens and you fall back into that old plan, I always say you don't have to live there anymore, but you might go back and visit. And so if I get anxious and I'm stressed, have a lot going on, I know what I can do to bring balance so that it's a lot more graceful.
So people, it seems that, stress kind of comes in seasons or comes and goes for many people. And so at those stressful times, that's when you could take these supplements to help combat these anxious moments or lack of sleep or things like that.
Exactly.
Right?
That way you get back to balance quicker, and you don't basically rack up a debt or a deficit of depleting your neurotransmitters, depleting your vitamins and minerals. It's as soon as you realize that it's happening, you have the skills and the tools to bring it back up to balance, so you don't have to deal with the aftermath once that stressful period is over.
Okay. So with food cravings and sleep, same kind of things. Same kind of neurotransmitters that are responsible for these kind of things like serotonin, dopamine. You want to relax yourself, I guess, whenever you possibly can. Like warm baths. You talk about magnesium on your feet. And what's the idea there with this magnesium on the feet? Because I didn't ask you.
Oh, sure. Well,
And what form do you buy this magnesium?
It's an elemental magnesium, and you can get it online. You just type in magnesium spray, magnesium oil, thewholejourney.com.
It's like a cream?
No, it's a spray. It's an oil.
Oh.
And you spray it on your feet, rub it in, and put socks on. And the idea is that just gets absorbed through the skin instantly, and the body will take as much as it needs. It bypasses the digestive system, and so that magnesium is going straight to nourish your nervous system and calm and soothe the nerves and muscles and the things that our ire gets raised when we have anxiety. Not too much of a good thing, because it can raise DHEA, but a couple times a week is great.
Well, it was interesting what she had to say about red meat, by the way.
Yeah, I know, and that really busts the traditional
red meat.
paradigm. Eat red meat.
But grass-fed red meat.
High quality, grass-fed, pasture-raised red meat, I would say at least twice a week.
Will help you sleep and calm yourself. Because of why?
Well, because it has a complete amino acid profile. And having high quality animal protein versus what I call polluted meats, which is the mainstream of society where these animals are not eating what they choose to eat in nature, having clean animal meat is going to have a complete amino acid profile, which will feed your brain, help you make neurotransmitters that you need to feel calm and happy and balanced.
Okay, how many times a week do you eat red meat?
I eat it once a week. I try to shoot for more, but I just don't really cook it a lot. By the way, on thewholejourney.com, we have grass-fed beef lasagna. It is one of our most popular recipes.
Now, you were on The Doctors, by the way. We should mention that. And that's a syndicated show all over the U.S. and in fact in Australia. I think it's in the U.K. What were you on there
It was a lot
about?
of fun. We talked about the 4 main causes of headaches and food-based solutions, and I loved being on that show. And then the hosts, they were, Travis is an ER doc, and Rachel is a primary care doc, and she's testing her clients for food sensitivities, and he's just giving his patients, as soon as they come to the ER with migraines, he's giving them magnesium, he's giving them electrolytes, he's giving them fluids, and so it was just really inspiring.
It is
to be on
amazing,
that
by the
show.
way, that more and more mainstream physicians even are looking at diet and food. It's returning to that. If you bring in a sick dog, they say, to the vet, and the dog is, let's say, a 4 or 5-year-old dog, and the dog is lethargic and is not moving, it's not barking, and just the vet will always say, "What are you feeding this dog?" And most medical doctors, and I'm saying most, like I had a friend, he said, "Oh, this guy's really good. He was sick." I go, "Did he ever ask you what you were eating?"
Yeah.
Never. Well, to me, that's not a good medical doctor. And so,
well, this is what we're doing with this show. We want to have the best of both worlds, make all medicine be functional medicine, and have people be empowered with their diet.
but it is food no matter what, no matter how you
It's
slice it. I have an email from my friend Greg.
Yeah.
He has a friend with lupus, his girlfriend with lupus and cervical cancer, emails me some referrals. But the main thing is, no matter where you go, you got to take care of the diet, and there are certain supplements to heal, and it's real, and de-stress and get a good night's sleep. I mean, you have to do everything you can to build your immune system.
Yeah.
Which
to
is
live a balanced
so no
life.
matter what the disease is, the so-called disease state, it's the same thing, is it not? in a way?
I agree. I agree. It's like we talk about all these different diseases and disorders, but it consistently comes back to that one thing of truly nourishing yourself and finding what it takes to get there.
But anxiety in particular, do you think your body then was deficient in something? That's why you had to take those things?
Oh, yes. B vitamins changed my whole MO. I mean, entirely. Once I refilled my B vitamin stores, I could think straight. I had energy all day. I thought, I'm so used to having this dip and this mental fog. And so I took high doses of a food-based B complex, high doses of omega-3s, started exercising regularly. It's just, it was a 180 to my experience of life. I used to think, I'm impatient and I get easily frustrated and easily irritated, and then all of a sudden, no, that wasn't an inherent part of my character. It was I was living in a state of depletion, and that removes the emotional burden. And I think especially as women, when we get frustrated with our kids or with anything, it's okay, well, don't judge yourself as this is a personality trait, but get yourself to balance and then see what happens.
Good. And every single week in your clinical practice, and on your website, because you have that going for you. And when do, by the way, we're out of time, but when do people get to follow? You have a thing about, what is it, every 3 months? They get started with you on your program?
We're opening enrollment in the mid-April for the Whole Journey online e-course.
And that's where they join up.
That's where you can work with me, and yes, you're in a group, but I help you through live webinars to customize anything from thyroid, adrenal, immune, digestive issues, anxiety. I mean, we're really teaching you how to use food as medicine, and you can go to thewholejourneyonline.com, and all the details are there.
It's all there. Okay, Christa, well, that's a wrap for today's show.
That's a wrap.
You've been watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez. We call it news that makes you healthier. Christa, final words here.
Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. So start there, and we'll see you next time.